So this is going to be the fastest run through learning theory in your whole life, but there's bucket loads of information around. So if we look at behavioural theories, and I'm not going to spend very long on this, behavioural theories, some people say, oh, no, forget about them. They're not important anymore. Behavioural theories really came out at the beginning of last century, and they were incredibly influential on what happened in classrooms, in education, for probably a good 60 or 70 years of last century. Some of you might know some of the people named. You might remember Pavlov. Pavlov's dogs is often listed, particularly Skinner. B.F. Skinner was one of the absolutely major people. A lot of people now say, oh, let's forget about behaviourism. You know, it's actually been superseded by the cognitive theories. What does it say? It really, where it came from, you've got to position it back at the beginning of last century. We didn't really know how the brain worked. The cognitive theories are really going to look at opening up the head and trying to work out how the brain works. Behaviourism, because they couldn't do that, what they really looked at was what was the environment that was actually promoting learning. So when I looked at the change in behaviour, what seemed to be happening? What was promoting those changes in behaviour? And it was this whole stimulus response, that the role of the teacher was to provide a stimulus, to focus attention, and I would get a response. And then a really big part of behaviourism was that reinforcement was critical. That the reinforcement that I then gave could actually make that behaviour stay. And that reinforcement can be positive or it can be negative. If you think back to when I was young, if you did something wrong, you know, it was mum or dad and you got the quick smack. And that was meant to be the reinforcement to say you aren't going to do it again. But there is negative reinforcement. We probably give it to our kids every day. I know I've given it to kids just by the look on my face when they've given me an answer that I don't think is the right answer, or a comment that I've written on a piece of work, or all sorts of things. But that reinforcement is critical in terms of the learning. And this one, behaviourism, also does look at the type of environment that I'm putting the kids in. What are the stimuli in the environment that might create a certain response? I'd say kids being able to be in a classroom that is well lit, welcoming, clean, and all of those things gives lots of messages about what we value about learning. The department providing rooms that in fact are dirty, grotty, old and revolting gives all sorts of messages about what's valued in learning and what's not. And so all of that I think is coming into it. So that's behaviourism in a very, very quickly. Cognitive theories, on the other hand, started later last century. And when they started, as I said, it was really when we were able to look inside the brain and start thinking about how is the brain involved in learning. And we're still learning a lot about this. But as you can see, they were more concerned about what's actually happening inside the brain. What have I got to do? Not just externally, but what have I got to facilitate to enable kids to acquire knowledge and skills? How do I actually help them form the mental structures I want them to form? And it's also really important about values and beliefs and the impact that they have on learning. So it really is saying that learning's internal rather than only worrying about the external that's happening. It's trying to bring both together. There's a couple of theories which I'm going to go, look, you could in fact put up 50 different theories. They're all slightly different names, but I'm just going to go through these. First one I'm going to put up is just social cognition. And this is the one that says Basically, one of the ways I learn is by watching other people. And so it assumes that learning occurs by doing or by observing others. Think of someone learning to play tennis with a coach. A lot of it will be by observing behaviour. What am I doing? What's the other person actually doing? And in this, modelling is critical.